What is going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Unscripted. Before we get into episode 21 of Unscripted, hope everybody's doing well out there. Hope you're staying safe out there. Hope you're staying encouraged. Hope you're staying positive. Look, I know things are starting to open up a little bit more, but we can't forget that we still must continue to abide by certain rules. That means keeping distance and making sure that we're keeping those hands nice and sanitized up. This week on Unscripted, my guest is Raven Magwood. Her list of accomplishments are pretty long, but I want to highlight some of the ones that truly stick out to me. You know, she graduated high school when she was 16, valedictorian with a 5.1 GPA. And I didn't even know that you could necessarily get higher than a 4.0. You know what I'm saying? But she graduated from there, then went on to Clemson University, where she graduated with honors at 19 years old. Even though she is a Clemson Tiger and they're in the ACC, you know, it's still SEC Crimson Tide over here. But we're going to let that slide, right? She's an author of 4 published books, including a new journal that is recently out. I think it's in the pre-order stages. I'll attach that below because you'll want to get that. But she wrote her first book when she was like 12. That's pretty cool. Not a lot of people are writing books when they're 12, right? Among those things, she was a national gymnastics champion when she was 11. She's a filmmaker. She's a motivational speaker. And she's part owner of Sparkle City Gymnastics gym in South Carolina. Like, she's very down to earth. She's very transparent. She's very honest, and she's very authentic to herself. And I think throughout this conversation, if you did not know who Raven Magwood is, you will know after this. She's someone who sees a vision. She's very intentional with how she reaches and how she makes her decisions. She has a lot of moving parts, but one of the things she highlights the most in our conversation is she makes time to balance everything out. You know, so for her, that's one of the things that I would say she does a really good job at, you know, finding time to allocate different energies and making sure that she's not missing anything in life. Enjoy episode 21 with Raven Magwood. What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Unscripted. Today we have a special guest in the house. A woman of many different accolades, many different things, wears many different hats. She's a published author, filmmaker, business owner, a motivational speaker. Raven Magwood, how are you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
Not too bad. How's everything going with the lockdown right there? You staying away from all the bad foods?
Oh yeah, it's different. I mean, if someone last year would have said that we'd be going through this right now, it's crazy. But I'm adjusting, getting a lot of work done at home, staying away from all the craziness outside.
Yeah, absolutely. So you've been able to achieve some pretty big things in your life to this date. You know, from writing books, from being a business owner, from being a former state champion. I'm a firm believer that certain things doesn't happen by fluke. There's a certain
Mhm.
internal factor, internal determination that comes with those accolades. Where did that come from for you? Was that something that was instilled in you growing up, or how did you
Mhm.
develop that?
Well, when I was younger, my parents were definitely those parents that told me, if you want to be successful, you've got to put in the work. And they said, you've got to work twice as hard as everyone else if you want all of these achievements that you say you want. And so for, most kids, I think their parents do say that to them. But for me, it just really stuck. And then when I started to see the fruits of my labor and I started to see success come from my hard work, then my parents' voices became my voice, and I just wanted to work hard for myself. And then, I just think it's a God thing, because one thing would happen and one accomplishment would happen, which would lead to another, which would lead to another, and things would line up in a way that I can't even take credit for. And it just led me into where I'm at today.
Gymnastics was your sport of choice at the
Mhm.
beginning.
Yeah.
You know, for me, it was track and field, and even though they're both different, the work ethic and the discipline is one and the same. Tell me a
Yeah.
little bit about that discipline, and just your everyday routine of being a young gymnastic. And
Yeah. Definitely a lot. And I actually did end up running track after I competed in gymnastics.
okay,
So I do
what'd
I
you
do
do?
know that like I ran the 400, I jumped too. I was a triple jumper and a long
Wow.
jumper, and then I was on the 4x4 relay team. But I think that the discipline that you learn from sports really just carries on to the rest of your life. I know for me, it started when I was really, really young. I was 12 years old, freshman in high school, and at the highest level of gymnastics. I was level 10 gymnast at 12 years old. And so my daily schedule, as you asked, it was crazy. I would wake up about 6 o'clock every morning, 6:30. I would get to my school around 7:30 because my mom had to take me before she went to work. I couldn't
Mhm,
drive until my senior year of high school. So I get to school 8:30 to 3:30 is the actual school hours. Then I go to a gym that's an
mhm.
hour away, and I practice for 4 hours from
Wow.
4:30 to 8:30. And so by the time I get back home at night, it's after 10 o'clock, and I haven't even started my homework. I have homework to do and things to do. So normal bedtime for me, even at the age, was after 12 o'clock.
Oh, wow.
And then I would wake up at 6 and begin it all again. So it was quite the schedule that I had, and I had to be really disciplined about what I did during the time to make sure that I got everything done. And I think as a 12-year-old and now being in my 20s, this has carried on for me. And so it's definitely something that I utilize to this day. And I think it's why I've been able to get so much done.
So habits and discipline has kind of been something that was instilled in you through sport, but you also made a conscious decision that no matter what, you still got to go through school and you still got to finish these
Yeah.
things. Um, how important was school for you? Because, I think I think sometimes being young and naive, the athlete in us will say, look, I'm just going to go pro at this. I'm going to make
Right.
all this money. Um, but that wasn't the case for you. A little shift happened.
Yeah, for me, it's always been important to get my education. And I always said I wanted a degree. I know for different people, it's different. And I do think there's ways to start your business and do things without getting a degree. And I don't knock anyone who does that. I
Mm.
had those thoughts in my own head. But for me, I just wanted to be able to, get that from my kids. When I have them one day, I'm not a mom yet, but when I do have them one day, I don't want them to look at me and say, well, mom, you didn't get your degree, so I'm not going to school. I just don't want them to
Yeah.
even have that to be able to say, like they can make that choice. But I just wanted to provide that example for my future kids and just for other individuals to just finish what you start. Because for me, I did start college very young. I was a second semester sophomore at 16 years old.
Wow.
And I just started after high school, after I graduated. And about halfway through, when I was in my junior year, I believe I just said, you know what? I don't necessarily want to be at school in this state because I was starting a TV show and I had a television talk show that I was doing as a regional show. And I said, I have so much going on. I don't really have to go to school. A 17-year-old, I don't really have to go to school right now. So I withdrew from all my classes and I actually stayed out of school for about a year and a half, and I was hosting my show. And then I just thought to myself, you know what? I want to finish what I started, and I want my future kids, as I said, to look at me and say, you know what, mommy did that. And so I did go back to school. It only took me a year to finish. When I went back, I was taking to like 22 hours each
Wow.
semester because I wanted to get out. But it was important for me to do that. And when I did go back to school, I ended up changing my major because I had started off pre-med and I changed it to communication studies, which of course is more in line with what I do now, writing and speaking. And I ended up learning so much. I learned so much that I use in my career now. And so I feel like it was one of the best decisions that I made to go back to school, to get my degree, to learn theories and different things that I didn't know before because I utilize it now.
Okay, before we get to the college aspect of it, because you went to Clemson, correct?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Um, there, there was a moment, I think in each of our lives in different stages, there's a moment that something happened and we saw something differently and our perspective changed.
Mm-hmm.
You were able to do all these different things and we'll get into that. But I want to know, before you got to college, maybe when you were 12, 13, 14 in the area, was there an experience that happened that you said, wow, I could do these other things. I could write these
Mm-hmm.
other books. Like, was there a moment that happened like that for you?
Yeah, it was definitely a moment like that happened even when I first started speaking. Because when I first started speaking, I gave my first speech at 12.
What'd you talk
I
about?
was it was for a conference for Stedman Graham. He had written a book called Move Without the Ball, which is about student athletics.
Mm.
So I basically gave a keynote speech using my life as an example of hard work and being successful both as a gymnast and in academics as a student. So it was a really good speech, well received, standing ovation. But I was super nervous. I threw up before the speech. I just did not know how I was going to get up here and give
Yeah.
the speech. So it was pretty crazy before, but afterwards ended up getting a standing ovation. So I was like, oh, well, people actually did listen to me. But I wasn't thinking at 12 this would be my career.
Mm-hmm.
Then I was given some speeches after then. One was at a church, one was at school, one was here, one was there. But it was cool as a 12-year-old to be getting paid to speak. And as a
Oh, yeah.
12-year-old, even getting paid $150, $200, it's like, oh my gosh, I'm rich. You're 12. So I was like, it was kind of like a shallow reason of wanting to speak, but I'm like, oh, people are listening to me and they're paying me. But it wasn't until it was like my fourth or fifth speech. I gave a speech at a church. And after the speech, a man came up to me and he said that he had actually tried to commit suicide 3 times in his life.
Wow.
And that he was actually planning on going home that day and trying again. And he said, but after hearing a 12-year-old speak so passionately and be so passionate about life and understand her purpose, he said, that really inspired me. And I promise you right here, right now, I'll never try to take my life again. I'm going to get the help that I need. And that was truly the moment where I was like, maybe this is what God put me on this earth to do. Maybe this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And so definitely saw that as my purpose, but still didn't connect it to a job, still
Yeah.
didn't connect it to creating a business. I just thought it was just one of my purposes and I would do it on the side. So throughout my whole school from 12 to 19, when I graduated from Clemson, I kind of had this on the side. It was my hobby. Some
Mm-hmm.
speeches paid extremely well, but I still wasn't thinking about it as a business. But once I graduated and I thought, why go into another field? This is what I love. Let me find a way to make this sustainable. And so now I am able to work for myself in many different aspects, multiple businesses, and I have a lot of fun doing it.
That is one of those moments that, I'm a firm believer that sometimes when God puts certain things in our lives, it may seem, that lined up. It's a
Mm-hmm.
coincidence, but I think coincidences are God's way of staying anonymous. You
Right.
know, let's talk about the transition from high school to Clemson. You see, I went to Alabama, so I'm SEC all day.
Got
Uh,
you.
what was that experience like for you? Because you finished high school early, from what I
Mhm.
understand. Now you're going into the Division I lifestyle, trying to maneuver between, the distractions, staying
Mhm.
focused,
Yeah.
communicating back home with family, still being what people would say, a kid to some extent. You still gotta, go on some dates, these things
Right.
here and there, literally,
Exactly.
so what was that stage like for you? Were you
Yeah.
nervous of that transition, or you were just like, let's just see what it is?
I really wasn't nervous at all. I had been around older people all my life because, as I said, I was a national gymnastics champion. I was a level 10 gymnast at 12 years old. So my teammates were 17, 18 years old. And
Mm,
that's how I had always been in my life. I was with groups older than me. So
yeah,
going to Clemson, as like I said, a second semester sophomore at 16, I wasn't thinking, oh my gosh, everyone's going to be in their 20s. This is going to be so weird. I
you're
was like,
used
oh,
to
this
it.
is normal. Yeah, like my friends are 20, it's fine. So it was actually more funny to see people realize that I was only 16. I had so many people ask to see my license. They thought I was joking. I'm like, that's not something you go around and joke about. Like, hey, I'm 16.
Yeah, yeah.
So, but I had a lot of fun. I had so much fun. I worked in the Clemson football recruiting office. So that was fun. I had to go to every football game and, interact with the players and just see a different side of communications, which is what I do now. So much fun. Yes, I did go on dates. I went to parties. I really just had the full college experience, but it was all about balance because, as you said, I do have this level of success I do want for my life. And I said when I stepped foot on campus, I want to leave with a 4.0. At that point in time, I had never gotten a B or anything less than that on a
Really?
report card or anything, like maybe on a test, but my average was always an A, always through school. So I said, I'm wanting to leave Clemson with a 4.0. And in order to do that, of course, can't party every night, so it was just about balance. But I did work that balance, and I was able to play a lot, but work a lot, and I did graduate with that 4.0. But yeah, it was fun. It was really fun. I met my best friend there, and I really did have the time of my life, and I learned a lot.
That's impressive. You know, I tell whenever I go speak to universities and kids, and I'm sure you do as well too, I tell them, they say, Akeem, I want to be a professional athlete, or,
Mhm.
I want to go to the Olympics, or I want to do this and that. And my first reaction is always just like, you may want that, but just because it sounds good. Some
Right.
people wants what it looks like, but doesn't want
Exactly.
what it feels like.
Right.
Um, was there a moment for you during that time that kind of stuck out more than the other? Like, did you have a favorite moment while you were there?
I had so many moments. I don't even know if I can pinpoint one. Like whether it was fun, whether it was something intense, serious that taught me something. I definitely, like I said, just really had the time of my life. I don't know if I can pick a moment, but the experience really did teach me about balance, because I had friends who did want to go out every night, and just learning to say no, like, no, I can't do that. I have this goal of getting a 4.0. I'll go out on Friday night, but that's one night of this week I can give you. I cannot go out every night and expect to get A's on all these exams next week. And so I think not necessarily a specific moment, but just the experience itself really, really, really did teach me a lot. And I'm thankful for the experience. And, it also just showed me the influence you can have on another person, because
Mhm.
my best friend to this day, when we met each other, we didn't know each other before college. And so even in my first semester at school, we weren't the best of friends. We just kind of had a mutual friend. And she thought that I was blowing the group off when I said that I was going to go study or going to do something. She was like, Raven just doesn't want to hang with us.
Yeah.
But something ended up happening with her roommate, where she actually ended up staying with me like that next semester. And she looked at me one day, weeks down the road of the second semester, and she's like, Raven, I thought you were just blowing us all off. Like, you are really in this room doing work. Like,
Yeah.
we are getting stuff done. And she went from being on academic probation, actually, to being on the dean's list that semester that she lived with me. And she wrote me this nice letter, like at the end of the semester, just saying, thank you for being my friend. Thank you for
Mhm.
being such a positive influence on me. And that was a moment, because I was 16 at the time, I'm
Yes.
young. So it was a moment that I was like, wow, you can truly impact someone's life in this way just by living your life. You don't have to beat them over the head with what they need to be doing. But if you live your life and you provide that example,
Mhm.
then other people can fall in line in that way. And that was so powerful to me. And that's why I say all the time that your life may be the only Bible that another person reads.
Wow.
And so that might be my moment.
Yeah.
That might be the answer to your question, where I just realized, wow, we can really impact people's lives.
Well, I want you to hold that thought, because that just brought me elsewhere. But before we get to that one, there's a certain discipline that you have to have when it comes to achieving what you wanted to do. You you strike me as a person who makes her to-do list and has a million things on there.
Yes.
Um, how important was it for you to have a schedule and a routine? Because, sometimes when people make that transition from high
Mhm.
school to university, you literally have to be strategic with how you spend
Oh,
your
yeah.
time. So walk me a little bit about what like an everyday schedule was like for
Mhm.
you from the moment you woke to the moment that you fell asleep.
Yeah, it's extremely important, because you can let life happen to you, or you can make things happen in your life. And I'm a person that makes things happen. Every night before I go to bed, I make a to-do list for the next day. I know it needs to happen. I know it needs to be done. Of course, now it's more work related, but back then it was school related. It was
Yes.
what project I have to do, what paper I need to write. Am I on track to finish this project on time? Do I need to see a professor on their office hours? So I was very big on creating that schedule and knowing what I needed to do every day. I liked taking early classes. Some people don't, but I just like to get them over with. So
Hmm.
really, typically, I did have that 8 o'clock class that I had to get up and go to. Tried to get all my classes kind of back to back. If I couldn't, because of scheduling reasons, I would go to the library in between and either do my homework or do my other work. I know I
Hmm.
actually wrote my third book in the library of Clemson at Cooper. So it's just, it's how you utilize your time. And so, yeah, wake up, go to class. Like I said, if I had that space in the library, it's work or it's work. And then I would always eat dinner with my friends. And, I had my friend time, had the fun time, whether it was a basketball game on a certain evening or getting ready for a football game on the weekend. Did work in the football recruiting office, as I said. So when it would get around 4 o'clock, I would be actually in the offices doing that. So, it was a full day, and I made sure that I'd filled it up, whether it was with schoolwork, whether it was with my work, or even whether it's with play. So I actually made an Instagram post about this today about balance. And I think sometimes you even have to schedule play into your schedule because you can get really burned out if all you're doing is working and working, working. And so, I made sure that my schedule was full, but I made sure there was a balance with that.
I do that too, and people sometimes look at me like I'm crazy. It's like, why do you schedule and watch this show
Right.
at this time? I'm just like, well, because I want to watch the show, but I
Right.
can't spend 17 hours watching the show. When you were saying, you're at Clemson now, and you're about to graduate, because you graduated at what age, like 19, 20?
Yeah, from Clemson, 19. Yeah.
Did you have any aspirations as to what you're going to do next?
Well, during I believe it was second semester of my last year, so when I was 19, I actually got a call that a movie was going to be made, an independent film production on one of my books. And so from that moment, knowing I was about to graduate, my aspirations were to get into the film industry, to see that my book was successful, the third book that I was telling you I was writing.
Yes.
So I had a lot on my plate. I was publishing a book, co-producing a movie, and then just thinking about what I'm going to do after college. And so really, as soon as I graduated, I hit the ground running. We were going on set and, meeting Tommy Ford as my mentor. So meeting with him and all the producers and getting things done in that aspect, doing tours and speeches on my book,
Yeah.
and, even putting things down for my next book. And so, I pretty much knew that I just wanted to continue at a bigger level what I was already doing.
Did you have to travel to go to these meetings and to go to these sets?
Well, the set was in Atlanta where we shot the movie, so that's not too bad. It's a 2-hour drive from where I'm at. But I've traveled a lot. I've traveled all over the country. I've been to Australia. It's been fun to be able to travel. Yes, to go to meetings. Yes, to visit different sets, to do interviews. I was in New York before all of this COVID stuff happened, like literally a week or two before everything shut down. I was up there at iHeartRadio doing interviews.
Yeah.
So, I really love what I do. I love traveling and being able to do it. And I'm glad that I've been doing it all this time.
You are a role model, hands down. But I don't necessarily like the word role model because we don't necessarily play roles. But in the stage, that's what you would go down as far as title. I want to talk about the fourth book, The 7 Practices of Prosperous Women. Tell me a little bit about that. Tell me why the title behind it. And I think this book meant a little something more special to you. I could be wrong, but tell me a little bit more about that.
No, it did. I was traveling a lot, giving speeches, and I speak to a lot of different groups. I speak to athletes, I've spoken to football teams and basketball teams, and then I do women's groups, and I do men's groups, and I do elementary schools. Like it spans to CEOs. But I would just notice every time I would speak to a group, I would get the women to come up to me and often ask questions about how to be successful wearing so many different hats. They'd be like, Raven, I'm a wife, I'm a mother, I volunteer at my church, I do XYZ. How do I get it all done? And they would ask me, how are you successful? How are you able to get it all done? And that's when I decided, let me put all this together. Let me formulate these 7 practices and, not make the book too long, make it an easy, enjoyable read, but really give women the tools to be successful and prosperous in every aspect of their life. And I explained in the beginning of the book, prosperity isn't just about money. I think when some people hear the word prosperous, they think, oh, you're wanting women to be rich. And while I want every woman to be financially free, it's just about fulfilling your full potential in the different areas of your life. And that's what I want for everyone, men, women, everyone. But the book was specifically written for women. And I was able to use a lot of different stories from my own life to give that inspiration. And as soon as the book was finished, I got testimonials from women around the world. And it's
That's
been a
good.
blast. It's been
Wow.
fun, whether it's an Olympian or a celebrity or, a mom just writing me, send me a DM. It's just amazing the impact that this book has been able to have.
So there was something that I read. I don't know if it's true or not, but we're gonna find out now.
Okay.
Was I think what I read was something that you were able to meet Michelle Obama.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about that.
I was able to meet Michelle Obama. I would say everything is an accident, but I mean, it was God's will. It really was God's will because I did not orchestrate this at all. She
Yes.
was in my hometown giving a speech. And so, I mean, who wouldn't go to a speech?
Absolutely.
Exactly. So I'm going to her speech just as a spectator. This isn't an event of mine. I haven't been invited there. I'm not giving a speech with her. I really just bought a ticket to hear her speak. And of course, when she was done, all of the news media surrounded her and wanted interviews and pictures and everything. So I go to leave. And as I was leaving, I caught the eye of a reporter who had done a story on me literally like the week before. And he called me over to where they were all standing.
Yes.
So I come over, he's able to talk to Mrs. Obama, and he says, "This is Raven." And I'm just like, "Hi." And he introduces me as a young author, entrepreneur, motivational speaker. So of course she's extremely interested. And she asked me if I have a copy of my book with me. And I'm like, yeah and no.
Sorta.
So I don't have a copy with me.
Yeah.
And she looks at me, beautiful smile, she's super, super nice. But she really does look at me like, "Raven, you're a young author. People are going to take interest in your story. How do you not have a copy of your book with you? Like, put it in your purse. You got to
Put
be
it
prepared."
somewhere. Yeah.
So I think about it and I say, "Actually, I have books in my mom's car if you'll wait for me." Now, why I said that to her, don't know, but I'm just like, if you'll wait, I can run out and get one. And so I had on like 6-inch heels. I don't know why I didn't take them off, but I ran like a 4.2 across that parking lot.
Hey,
Got
okay.
I had to get it. Got my books out of the trunk, came back. She was still there. Signed her a copy of my book because at first I just gave it to her. And she's like, "No, you've got to sign it, right?" And so I signed her a copy of the book, and she just looked at me and she said, "You just have to be prepared for every opportunity." And that taught me a valuable lesson that luck truly is the meeting of preparation and opportunity. And so now, whether books are in my car, in my purse, with someone else, like I make sure that I really am prepared for every opportunity because you just never know. But yes, I was able to meet her, and she taught me one of the best lessons I've ever learned.
I'm a firm believer that sometimes God puts you in a position to meet someone and shows you what your future could possibly look like on that stage. Now, I'm not saying that you may be the president, but I'm not saying I wouldn't be surprised if it didn't, if
It could
it did.
happen.
Now, you've written books, did movies, did films, and we're going to talk about the business owner aspect of things as far as the gym. But nobody gets through life without going through something. You know what I'm saying? Like there's 365 days out of the year, and it is impossible to stay positive 365 days out of the year. So how do you get yourself back on track when things aren't going well? Do you have a
Right.
method to get back to that good standing?
Yeah, I definitely have my moments. I am not perfect whatsoever. I really dislike when people try to put that title on me, "Raven, you're perfect," or "Your life seems perfect." It is far from it. I just choose to have a positive attitude about the things that happen to me and about the things around me.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't mean I don't have my moments. It doesn't mean that there aren't days when I do want to stay in bed. It doesn't mean that there aren't days when I get upset or I lose my temper. I am a human being, but I am very intentional about making sure that I'm as positive as I can and that I'm making the best decisions that I can. And when I am down, when I do want to give up, when I am in this rut, as people will say, for me, I just love to start listing off the things I'm thankful for, even if it's the breath in my body.
Mm-hmm.
It's the fact both of my parents are still alive and they're still here and very supportive of me, and they've been married for pushing 30 years now, like just things of that nature. I have a younger brother who's super supportive of me. I have great friends. I'm financially independent. There's just things that you can start listing off, and once you start listing off those things, for me anyway, I start to feel better. And I'm like, Raven, it could be worse. Pick yourself up. Now, I'm not saying not to go through your emotions. There's a time for everything under the sun, and that's in the Bible. Sometimes you do need to cry and let it out and let those tears cleanse your soul. Sometimes you do need to allow yourself to be sad or be angry or be whatever, but then you've got to pick yourself up. So for me, that is a method that I definitely use. I say, okay, Raven, what are you grateful for? What are you thankful for? And whether I write it down or I just list it off in my head, it just really starts to make me feel better. And then another thing that I do is sometimes I just go through my messages, whether they're emails or DMs or whatever it is. I get messages from people all over the world, here in the US, France, India,
Mm-hmm.
Africa, Australia, everywhere, saying I read your book, or I listened to something on a video you said on Instagram. You inspire me. You're my role model. I want to be like you. Can you give me advice? And then that keeps me going. It just shows me there are literally people all around the world watching me and who are inspired by me. Let me continue to be that example.
It's funny you say that because I have like a folder in my phone that literally says when times get tough,
Mhm.
just to read and different things. Tell me about one of the toughest years that you had to face to date.
One of the toughest years, definitely, I would say, the year I had my second lumpectomy. I have had two breast tumors removed.
Wow.
And so the first one really wasn't, I won't say a big deal, but it wasn't scary, I guess I will say. I was only, maybe, okay, a little bit scary, but I was, I was 17, just randomly, I feel something that doesn't seem right, but I'm like, okay, let me just go to the doctor. I'm sure he's going to tell me, Raven, you're fine, and send me
Mm-hmm.
home. I'm one of those people, I'd rather go to the doctor and you tell me I'm fine than to worry myself to death. So I'm like, let me just go make this appointment. He'll tell you you're fine and you'll be fine. He didn't tell me I was fine. He recommended me to a breast cancer surgeon. Like, I'm 17 years old now.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay. That initial, being recommended to a breast cancer surgeon at 17 years old, that was the scariest thing in the world. But I go see the surgeon and he says, okay, we're going to send you to radiology, get some ultrasounds done, get scans done and things and see what this really is. Because it could be a cyst. It wasn't a cyst. It was definitely a tumor. But he said, even though you've never experienced anything like this before, he said, I see this all the time. I deal with stage 4 breast cancer.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you, I don't know what it is, but I think you're going to be all right. So he was reassuring me through the whole entire process, reassuring my mom. He said, we are going to do the lumpectomy surgery.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to take this thing out, but it'll be a quick surgery. You'll be back home. You'll be sore for a few days, but you'll be fine. So I just had that reassurance. So the initial fear just started to, dwindle with time. Then I have the surgery. It is benign, and I go on with my life. I'm fine. I think I'm fine anyway. So a year and a half later, I'm 19 now. This is my last year at Clemson. And remember, all these things are going on. I'm writing my
Yeah.
book. I'm preparing for this movie. I'm preparing to graduate, and I'm taking 22 hours each semester. I told you I wanted to get out of there. So all this in my 19th year. You asked me what my hardest year now. It was definitely my 19th year of living. So the doctors tell me, every once in a while, Raven, give yourself a self-exam, just make sure everything's okay. I do that, and I'm like, something doesn't seem right again. So I'm
Mm.
like, okay, let me go back to my doctor, who sends me right back to the breast cancer surgeon. And I'm thinking he's going to look at me the same way. I think we're going to dap up, be like, oh,
Yeah,
yeah,
like,
you're fine.
hey, remember this?
Exactly. Like, you're fine. He looks at me and my mom with a serious face, and he's like, this one concerns me.
Man,
And I was
that's never
like,
good. Never good.
ooh. I went home and cried. I was like, this is not the same attitude that this man had before.
His
This is
energy's
a
off.
problem. Right. This is a problem.
Yeah.
So did the scans again. It was bigger than before. It was in the same spot, but bigger, grew faster. So their concern was like, what's really going on here? So I ended up having another lumpectomy. They took even more tissue because they said, let's just take more and just really figure out what's going on. Turns out it was benign again, even though it was very fast growing and it was a little different. It was benign. And since they did take more of the healthy tissue, it didn't come back. And I haven't had an issue since. But that experience and just with everything I had going on, it just showed me to really be appreciative about life, because you just never know and you can take things for granted. But the fact that we're still here means there's purpose, right? There's still things for us to do. There's still things for us to accomplish. We're here for a reason. So even though we may have those days that are hard for us to get out of bed and we feel negative, I remind myself, well, Raven, you're still here. So there's something for you to do. There's someone for you to impact. And that year, that 19th year, just really changed that perspective for me. And it was hard. I mean, talk about adversity. You have 19-year-olds who are still seniors in high school, some worried about their senior prom. And I'm a senior in college, book, movie, breast cancer surgeon. I don't know many 19-year-olds who had a breast cancer surgeon, but it's just a lot. But I learned a lot, and I appreciate life a lot more because of it.
I think that's a true testament of, the gratitude and the things that you apply now to your life. You know what I'm saying? Because, there's some people that always say, like, some people just talk about the good. Like they talk the talk. You know what I'm saying? They say things because it sounds good, but they really haven't lived it.
Right.
And, when I think about that, I think about the song that, that Drake had, Started From the Bottom. And when that saying came on, everybody was just like, man, it started from the bottom, but you really have to ask yourself, like, what is your bottom?
Right.
Because you talk to somebody else and you realize that your bottom was really the middle, and their bottom was really the bottom. And I think what brings more life to you is, man, you live everything that you say. So I appreciate you sharing that. Now let's talk about gymnastics and the owner. How did that come to fruition for you? Was this a gym that you had a relationship with, or what made you want to again get involved back into gymnastics? Because look, your schedule was already hectic enough,
right?
So you got a lot of things going on, but
exactly.
What made you embark on that?
Definitely a God thing. Again, like I said, so many God things in my life where you just can't ignore. Me and my mom went in on this together as a joint venture. So we co-own this gym. And like I said, God, because one of my best friends is actually coaching at this gym before we even considered buying it, like a few years before, I think 3 years. And she had to move suddenly. And she was going to just leave these high-level gymnasts without a coach. She was like an assistant coach under the head coach and owner at that time. And so I'm just thinking in my head, you're going to do this to these girls. We know how this feels. Don't do that. I really felt bad for the situation. And so she asked me, well, Raven, just for a year, just for a season, can you come in and coach? You know the skills. The girls are going to love you. Please, please, please do this for me. So I'm like, you know what? Most of the things I do are during the day anyway. I speak during the day. I can write anytime. I was like, sure, like an after school job, 4 to 7, why not? So I ended up saying, okay, well, if they'll hire me, sure. And I do the interview, they hired me on the spot, and I start coaching within a couple weeks. So I start coaching. The girls really do fall in love with me. I fall in love with them. It's just great. And I go from coaching or saying that I'm going to coach for a semester to I'm going to stay and finish out the year, do a whole calendar year, not just the season. And then I'm like, okay, then they're like, Raven, are you coming back? And I'm sure I'll come back for the second season. And I just couldn't imagine just leaving them at that point in time. And the God thing happened where the owner, he was 70 years old at the time. He was 71 maybe. And he wanted to retire. He wanted to, hand over the business operations to someone else. It was a lot for a 70-year-old to be worried about. And he just wanted to take a step back from being the head coach. And he pulled me aside one day And he said, Raven, the girls love you. I love you. I look at you as a daughter. And I couldn't even imagine this gym going to anyone else. Would you consider having the gym? And I said, most definitely. Let me look at the numbers. Let me really see what's going on. And it happened to be my mom was selling some land, selling a building downtown, which was a great real estate. And she was also looking for something to invest in. And I said, Mom, I think I might have something.
Mm.
So we go through everything and we do it. And we purchase the gym, and it's amazing. It's absolutely amazing from the first day, just the experiences that you get to have with the girls. And then we really grown the gym since that time. And so, yeah, it's been fun. It's been difficult at times. Of course, we're closed now
Yeah.
because of COVID. So that's been difficult, but I know we'll get through it. And it's just been quite the experience. And I've learned a lot really having so many employees and dealing with different personalities. It's helped me grow as a leader a lot.
Definitely, especially, you got to look at payrolls and all these different
Hmm.
things and crunches math.
Right.
But apart from creating and developing these young Olympian medalists, because there are going to be a couple there, what what else do you want to instill in these young athletes?
Yeah, for me, it's not just about the gymnastics. It's hard to go to the Olympics as a gymnast. When I think about when I was doing track, I had friends who went to the Olympics for pole vaulting, for, 400 meters. They were on relay. There's just a lot of different ways that you can go as a track runner or jumper. For a gymnast, you have thousands of high level gymnasts in the country, and it's now 4 gymnasts are on that team
Yeah.
every 4 years. I mean, 4. This past Olympic cycle is 5. And so I don't really try to sell that Olympic dream to anyone, but we do have the capability of getting gymnasts to college. We've done it. And so for me, it's not just about the gymnastics, though. I want to develop whole individuals. So I help my kids with their homework. I talk to them about boys. I give them motivational speeches. I tell them they can talk to me about anything and to ask me anything. And I get moms who truly thank me for that. I get moms to text me all the time and say, you know what, it doesn't even bother me that my daughter talks to you more than she talks to me. She has a
Yeah.
great influence in her life, and thank you. Or, ever since you came into her life, she's had a better attitude. Her grades are better. She just loves you. That means the world to me. So to know whether they go to college or not, go to the Olympics or not, even stay with gymnastics or not, but to know they're better individuals and they're doing better in school and they look at life in a different way because of my influence, that's what's more important to me.
There's a spirit about you, and I think that they can see that. Kids, if you really want to know, people always say,
Oh, yeah.
I'm a chef, I can cook this good. If you really want to know if you're a good chef, make a meal for
For
a
a
chef.
kid, right?
But I want to get into these last two questions, and they're not hard. They're just all fun. So the first one is, okay, so you wake up tomorrow. I got to paint the story. You wake up tomorrow and you're lying, you just wake up in a hammock and you're on an island, right? And you're like, okay, what is going on here? And you look to the left and you see like 21 plates. Can't see what's on the plates because you got to stay at this island for 21 days. What is the one meal that you can eat for 21 days straight?
Oh, Lord. See, I have like my favorite meals, but I don't know if it would be healthy to eat for 21 days straight. I love pizza. I could eat pizza all the time, but I think that would probably make me sick for 21 days straight. I'm a girl that really loves a good filet mignon, mashed potatoes, asparagus,
Mm-hmm.
but steak for 21 days. I don't know if
It'd be a little rough.
that.
Be a little rough.
I make good chili. I eat on that sometimes 4 or 5 days straight if I have a big pot, but that's 5 days, not 21. So I don't know. That's a good question, but I like to eat. I love to eat. My brother will joke with people and say I should be 300 pounds because I just eat all the time for no reason.
Put some food on it. That's what I'm talking about.
Yes, I love food. I would prefer at least 2 meals, maybe 10 days, one meal, 11 days, another meal. I'd probably do pizza for the 10 days. and then filet and the mashed potatoes and asparagus. For
Fair
the other
enough.
11.
Fair enough. The last question is, you've been able to achieve some remarkable things, some things that people would want to achieve and aspire to achieve. And you still got so much more to go. Who knows what God has in stores for you and where he's going to put you, but he's using you. If there was a word to describe Raven Magwood, what would that one word be?
Intentional. Definitely intentional.
You heard that, people. Intentional. That's it. That's it. You don't get to add nothing to it. You don't get to add nothing to it. It's just the one.
It's
just the one.
intentional, because people ask all the time, Raven, how do you get things done? Or how do you do this? How do you do that? I'm not sitting here claiming to be so much smarter than people. I'm not sitting here claiming to be so much more talented than people. But it's just like The Last Dance. I'm watching that. Michael Jordan.
I'm about to watch the next two.
Regardless of your opinions of certain things he's done in his life, I mean, the man is a hard worker. Like you're not going to outwork him. And I feel like when it came to basketball and other things, he's just very intentional about his sport and about things that he wanted to be successful in. And that's how I am about life. I'm intentional about having good relationships with people. I'm intentional about being successful personally and professionally. I'm intentional about my walk with God. And because of that, I make time to read my Bible. I make time to meditate and pray. I make time to make sure I speak to my loved ones and tell them I love you, and I give them their flowers now and not when they pass away.
Amen.
I'm very intentional about that. And so when you look at my life and you say, well, Raven, you seem to have it all together. I don't. I'm a human being, but I am intentional.
Raven, how do people keep in contact with you? And if I remember correctly, you have a new journal out.
Yes.
I think it's on pre-order, right?
Yes, you can pre-order them now. I actually have, it's right here.
For those seeing the video, holding up the Success Journal right now.
Yes, I got, and then the back of it, you can see we all have 24-hour days. So what are you doing with yours? And really with the journal, you can break down your days. You can do your to-do list and break down personally, professionally, spiritually, physically, what you're doing each day to see progress. And those can be ordered on my website, www.ravenmagwood.com. I'm really active on Instagram, and it's just @RavenMagwood. Same thing with Facebook, @RavenMagwood. So yeah, quick Google search, Instagram, my website, you can find me. And even though I can't respond to everyone, I get a lot of messages, I do try to respond the best that I can. And so whether it's a question that you have or something you want to order, I'm here.
And we'll be sure to put the order links up as well too, so you can have direct contact to it. Raven, thank you so much for joining me and giving me your time. And honestly, I don't know what God has in store for you. Sometimes we have one image and we might say, God will do this for you, but I never want to put a cap on what he's about to do. All I know is that you're a blessing to the world, and I hope that you never forget that.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you, and thank you for having me on your show.
It was a pleasure. Have a good rest of your day, and we'll talk soon. That's another episode, everybody. Take care.